How we doing today, guys? It's Jesse with the Common Man Corpus Christi, bringing you news and politics through a common sense lens. And here we go, the century of the trial. We got a verdict late yesterday afternoon. Ghislaine Maxwell convicted of recruiting teenage girls for Epstein sex abuse. This is from Reuters. New York, December 29th. Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty by a U.S. jury on Wednesday of helping the late financier Jeffrey Epstein sexually abuse teenage girls, sealing a remarkable fall from grace for the British socialite. Maxwell, 60, who was accused of recruiting and grooming 4 teenagers between 1994 and 2004 for Epstein, her former boyfriend who killed himself in 2019 in a Manhattan jail cell while awaiting trial on sex abuse charges of his own. She was convicted on 5 of 6 counts, including 1 count of sex trafficking. Lawyers for Maxwell, who faces up to 65 years in prison, vowed to appeal. Of course they did. Maxwell's trial was widely seen as the reckoning Epstein never had, and one of the highest profile cases in the wake of the #MeToo movement, which encouraged women to speak out about sexual abuses by famous and powerful people. Which is so weird. We know how many people these guys were connected to, and yet somewhere, all the #MeToo people are poof, gone. Weird how that works. During the month-long trial, jurors heard emotional and explicit testimony from 4 women who portrayed Maxwell as central to their abuse by Epstein. 3 of the 4 said Maxwell herself touched their inappropriate parts and took part in the encounters, which often began as massages. Maxwell's attorneys sought to undermine the women's credibility, arguing that they were motivated by money to implicit Maxwell since all 4 had received a $1 million award from a compensation fund for Epstein victims. Okay, so they'd already got the money, though. Okay. But the women disputed those characterizations, saying they decided to testify out of a desire for justice, not money. Money will not ever fix what that woman has done to me, testified one woman, known by her first name, Caroline, who said Maxwell once touched her and her as she prepared for a massage Epstein when she was 14 in 2002, inappropriate places. Caroline's case was at the heart of the sex trafficking charge because she said Maxwell would sometimes hand her hundreds of dollars in cash after she gave Epstein massages. Epstein would tubin himself between the encounters in his Palm Beach, Florida state, Caroline testified. The jury deliberated for 5 full days before reaching the verdict. How it took them that long, I have no idea. Kind of weird, but After the verdict was read, Maxwell, wearing a burgundy turtleneck, poured herself a glass of water. Defense attorney Jeffrey, not going to try that, patted her upper back. An expressionless Maxwell looked briefly at 2 of her siblings seated in the front row as she left the courtroom. Annie Farmer, one of the women who testified against Maxwell, said, "I am so relieved and grateful the jury recognized the pattern of predatory behavior that Maxwell engaged in for years and found her guilty of these crimes." Maxwell's lawyer, Bobby Sternman, told the reporters the defense was disappointed with the verdict. "We have already started working on the appeal, and we are confident that she will be vindicated," Sternheim said outside of the courthouse. Maxwell returned to Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, where she has been held in isolation since July 2020. Maxwell has voiced concerns about her treatment at the jail, asserting the guards have disrupted her sleep at night, and the stench of raw sewage has permeated her cell. Ugh, gross. I believe in proper care, even for evil people. We shouldn't stoop to their level. Always be better. Sternheim asked U.S. District Judge Allison Nathan after the verdict was read to ensure that Maxwell received her booster vaccine against COVID-19. Yeah. I think other things are going to get her long before COVID. Nathan then said that the shot was available at MDC and that she would look into it. Road to justice. The conditions at MDC are far cry from the opulence that Maxwell, a daughter of a late British press baron Robert Maxwell, had been accustomed to most of her life. Her father founded a publishing house and owned tabloids, including the Daily Mirror. He was found dead off his yacht near the Canary Islands in 1991. Weird. Maxwell dated Epstein for several years in the 1990s when the pair attended high society parties and traveled on luxurious private jets. During the trial, prosecutors showed jurors bank records indicating Epstein paid Maxwell millions of dollars over the years. They said Maxwell was motivated to do whatever it took to get Epstein happy in order to maintain her luxurious lifestyle. I think there's probably more to it than that. Maxwell's attorney argued that prosecutors were scapegoating her because Epstein was no longer alive. Epstein's death left a gaping hole in the pursuit of justice for many of these women. She's filling that hole and filling that empty chair. But prosecutors countered by describing Maxwell as Epstein's partner in crime. Ghislaine Maxwell made her own choices. She committed crimes hand in hand with Jeffrey Epstein. She was a grown woman who knew exactly what she was doing. Damlin Wills, the U.S. Attorney for the South District of New York, applauded the verdict in a statement that said Maxwell was convicted of one of the worst crimes imaginable. The road to justice has been far too long, his statement said, but today justice has been done. I wanted to commend the bravery of the girls, now grown women, who stepped out of the shadows and into the courtroom. Epstein's arrest and suicide drew attention to Maxwell's role in his abuses and the financial relationship with prominent figures like U.S. former President Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Britain's Prince Andrew, and billionaire investor Leon Black, as well as Bill Gates. I'm adding that one in. None has been charged with crimes related to Epstein. The Prince, a former firm of Epstein, is defending against a civil lawsuit in Manhattan claiming he did inappropriate things to Virginia Giuffre, another of Epstein's accusers. Andrew has denied the claims. During the trial, the prosecutor displayed for the jury a green massage table which was seized from Epstein's Florida estate in 2005, backing up women's descriptions of the massages. The one charge Maxwell was acquitted on, enticing an underage girl to travel for the purpose of illegal activities, carried a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison. The charge pertained to a woman known by a pseudonym, Jane, who testified that she was 14 when Epstein first did bad things to her. Jane said she traveled to Epstein's homes in New Mexico and New York where some of the abuses took place, and that Maxwell sometimes helped coordinate her travel. Maxwell at times took part in the inappropriate stuff with Epstein and acted as if it was normal. Jane testified, "It made me feel confused because that did not feel normal to me. I've never seen anything like this or felt anything like this." Despite the not guilty verdict on that count, the jury appeared to find other aspects of Jane's story credible. They convicted Maxwell of transporting a minor to travel for illegal acts, another count that pertained solely to Jane. Moe said during her closing arguments that Maxwell's presence made young girls feel comfortable with Epstein. Otherwise, receiving an invitation to spend time with a middle-aged man would have seemed creepy and set off alarm bells, Moe said. Epstein could not have done this alone. So, yeah. So that's the whole kind of breakdown on what happened with the Maxwell trial. I thought it was really important to highlight that since it all just got concluded yesterday. I know that's very in-depth, but this is stuff that needs to be known. This is stuff that needs to be shared with your friends. It's absolutely insane. There was all of the court documents. Well, let's just go right into it. So this is from, okay, so yeah, here we go. Maximum 40 years is what she's looking at. This one is the one that really irritated me this morning. Absolutely irritated me. We're never going to get, well, I've got an idea of how we're going to get the information out of this, and we'll go over that in a little while. But check this out. Maxwell's Little Black Book to Remain Secret in Court Deal. This is from the Times.com UK. So I think it's like basically their version of the New York Times. The prosecution and defense in the trial of Maxwell have agreed that her Little Black Book of contacts will never be made public, even though the jury was allowed to see part of it. Judge Allison Nathan ruled at Manhattan Federal Court that only a limited amount of material from the British socialite's contacts book would be released under seal. Maxwell, 59, is accused of procuring, grooming. Oh man, it's going to be one of those that are going to make me do it. Maxwell, 59, is accused of procuring, grooming, and trafficking young girls for abuse by the financier Jeffrey Epstein from 1994 to 2004. She has pleaded not guilty but faces decades in prison if convicted. All right, so I'm not going to pay for that to look at it because this, I think, let's see, there we go. This is from CNN. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about on that, in particular aspect of things, is because they resealed all of the information as well. They resealed everything, all the files from the case. The FBI has all of this information, all of these contacts, all of these recordings that the Epstein and Maxwell were using to bribe all these high-end people or blackmail all of these high-end people. Now, all of this is strictly speculation, but what else would they have in there? We know Epstein was basically running a blackmail ring with very influential people. Bill Gates, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton. Even there was some flights from Trump in the early 90s. So it's one of those things that really makes you wonder where all of this is coming from. Why are they sealing all of these records? Why are we not getting to know about these very, very powerful people that are getting away with this, that were actively involved, that had been to the island, Epstein's Island, many, many times? We need to know. The public need to know the truth. But just to highlight more of why we have to do all of this on our own, let's get over to, okay, so CNN, they covered this very lightly the whole time, which is rather disturbing. Jury finds Maxwell guilty of trafficking charges for Epstein. So basically it's going to go over the same thing. Follow live updates. So they go through, it looks like they go through most of the same stuff. They've got some of the pictures from the trial. That looks like when the verdict was being read. They go through what happened at the trial. But remember, a lot of these groups, they covered this stuff up for years. CNN and, ABC News, there was a thing from Project Veritas that was exposed that said that there was a reporter, she had all of the information on Epstein, was completely and totally ready to go forward with it, and ABC killed the whole thing, partially because it was involved Prince Andrew. So this is just another one of the examples of the media collusion. And I mean, even in the very first article from Reuters that we read, it said Maxwell's dad was a media guy. Whether it was, whatever they want to call about the rags, the magazines, all the gossip rags. Maybe he did one of those or not. But I guarantee you, he still ran in all the same circles, And a guy who runs gossip rags, well, what better way to do it than to recruit somebody to blackmail? Because that's the stories I've heard. I don't know how much of it's true. I can't confirm a lot of it, but the rumor is that Maxwell and her father recruited Epstein to do all of this. I don't know. It sure seems weird, but if they're actively involved in the media, and, we know that they've been covering this stuff up for years, that the FBI has been looking into this since the 90s. All right, so let's move on. Now that we know CNN and all the rest of the media colluded to hide all of this, I thought this was kind of interesting. This is from the Blaze Media. Probe pertaining to former CNN employee has been initiated regarding serious allegations involving potential juvenile victims. Between Weinstein out in Hollywood and Epstein and Prince Andrew, and this is the second person from CNN. So, yeah, really makes you wonder if they're not all in the same friend groups. A former CNN worker who was served as a senior producer on Jake Tapper's The Lead is being investigated into connection with allegations pertaining to a potential minor victim, Fox News reported, citing the Fairfax County Police Department. The department told the outlet that a probe has been initiated into serious allegations involving potential juvenile victims, and detectives assigned to the Child Exploitation Squad of the Major Crimes Bureau are leading this investigation, related to Rick Selby. While we will eventually be transparent about our findings, safeguarding the personal privacy and safety of victims and witnesses, as well as maintaining the integrity of our criminal investigation, are of paramount importance, a Fairfax County Police spokesperson said. Well, that would have been nice in the Maxwell trial, huh? A CNN spokesperson informed Fox News Digital that an individual in question no longer works for CNN, but resigned earlier in December. Maybe he knew this was coming. Another former CNN producer, John Griffin, was recently fired by the outlet after being arrested. Sounds like homeboy knew what was going to come for him, and he'd rather quit than get arrested from CNN and then fired. God, these are dirty, dirty people. Griffin was arrested earlier this month by the FBI after a federal grand jury in Vermont charged Griffin with 3 counts of using a facility of the interstate commerce to attempt to entice minors to engage in unlawful activity, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Vermont. The charges against Mr. Griffin are deeply disturbing. We learned of his arrest Friday afternoon and terminated his employment Monday, a CNN spokesperson informed Fox News earlier in December. You can't tell me, after seeing this many people involved with this kind of stuff, that they are not all in on it. Like, there has just got to be, I don't know how there's not these people have got to know. They're around each other every day, 7 days a week, 24/7, 365 days a year. I mean, they're in the news media. These people all go to the same parties. They all rub the same shoulders with people in Washington. How is it possible that nobody knew about any of this? It's not, guys. It's not. It's not possible. These people all run in the same circles. They're all friends with each other, And if you can believe Luke Gradowski, then they're all a bunch of freaking drunks too, and medicated out of their minds. They're all addicts of one form or another, which definitely could explain why you're out of your mind on drugs and booze, God only knows what you'll do. God only knows what you get into. So I said earlier in this video that I had a solution to some of this, okay? The only thing that I can think, we have to expose all of this. All the Maxwell stuff, all the Epstein files, all of this needs to be brought out and laid out in the public forum. We need to be able to see all of this. These people were deeply embedded in our government. Bill Clinton, Bill Gates. You know, you don't think Hillary knew about him hanging out with Epstein? We know Melinda Gates knew. She had issues about it. She even brought it up in her divorce. These people all know each other. They're all involved in the same circles. From Harvey Weinstein out in Florida all the way to Epstein in New York and all the way down to the southern border where so many people are being trafficked. So this is what we do. Next year, well, when we win in the midterms, when we take back the House and the Senate, we need a coordinated campaign to pound on our senators and our representatives and demand with phone calls, with emails, with letters, with office visits, we need to demand that they open up public hearings into this. We need to know what the DOJ knew, what the FBI knew, why they had been investigating Epstein for years, had interviewed tons of witnesses and never brought charges. These questions need to be answered. America deserves the truth about this monstrous world that we are living in with all of these elites that are doing horrendous things to children. We need justice. We need to know what happened. And even if our DOJ and our FBI is so corrupt that they won't prosecute them, at least we'll have the truth. And that'll give us an excuse to when we take full control back of the government, all three branches, that we can clean house and remove all of these people and get this ilk out of our government and maybe restore some trust in our institutions. The answer is us, guys. So get out there, vote in your primary, find you a good populist. Do not vote for these rhino Republicans that are involved and are just going to sit on their hands or at least turn a blind eye. So that's the plan. Get out there, find populist candidates, get rid of these rhinos, get rid of these incumbents that have sat on their hands and done nothing and probably knew about this and at least turned a blind eye if we're involved. Get out there. Primaries, at least here in Texas, are March 1st. Get out there and vote. If you know you have a rhino Republican in your group, get rid of them. We need good, strong voices in order to uncover all of this information. These people are monsters, and only the light of the truth will burn away any of this corruption. We need to know what happened. All these files need to be unsealed. So remember, get out there, vote in your primary, get rid of these rhino Republicans so next year when we take back the House and the Senate, we can have investigations and find out the truth. This is Jesse with the Common Man Corpus Christi, bringing you news and politics through a common sense lens. Happy New Year, guys, and thanks again. Hey guys, don't forget to check out the t-shirt store where you can order the t-shirt you saw me wearing today, the Duplicitous Dwarf, or any of the other ones we've got. Any of that kind of stuff that you order off of here really helps out the channel so we can expand and I can have better equipment and we can do more things. So please go check out the Common Man Corpus Christi on Creator Spring to pick up a t-shirt. Thanks, guys.